Welcome back to the last evening of the Big Book Study. It's been a pleasure to be with you all, even if it's virtual. It's a beautiful morning here in East Dorset. We are standing in front of what we call today the Griffith Library. This is actually the boyhood home of Bill Wilson. This is where Bill lived from 1906, and he continually came back here until 1924 when his grandfather died. His grandfather was Fayette Griffith, and when his mother left for Boston, this is where he and his sister came to live. So the Wilson House across the churchyard, which we can look over there, across the churchyard is the Wilson House, and we can see they're getting ready to do some weed whacking. So we're going to go inside as quickly and as efficiently as we can. But this is where Bill spent most of his time. While he was born over at the Wilson House, this is where he lived. And when Bill was a kid, this was actually the post office. There was a sign up above the door that said post office. His grandfather was the postmaster. And it looked much different, but yet the footprint is still the same. When you come here to visit, the hours are generally the same hours as the Wilson House, and you just come over and you ask for the key, and it's self-guided. We did put up this interpretive panel in 2019. This photograph right here kind of shows you, if you were standing in the doorway looking across the street, you would have been staring at the Dorset Mountain Marble Company mill, and this was a channel with water, which all this marble is still over there. So if you wanted to go bushwhacking, you could actually find this. And for those of you who are train aficionados, and I know they exist, this is the mail hook for the train, which would have been right outside right across the road here. And his grandfather would have gone and picked up the mail off the hook. So today, when we look out across the street, we just see woods and Route 7 on the other side. In Bill's day, he would have been staring at this large marble mill. And this stack that you see here, when Bill played baseball while he was at Burton Seminary, when he was a student, he used to throw stones at this. And he threw stones at it so often that later in life, according to Lois, he developed tennis elbow, what would be called tennis elbow today. That old fierce determination that he had to be the best. So, and he really was a pretty good ball player from what I understand. But this will kind of give you an overview of this. You know, while Bill kind of had an aw shucks about his growing up, because I think he compared the wealth of his family here in East Dorset and Manchester to that of Lois's family in Brooklyn, his comings and goings were noted in the newspaper way before social media. So you can see, and when you query for him, if you're looking at it, you'll see here he was Willie Wilson, who has been spending his vacation with his father in British Columbia, returned home last Friday and left Monday to enter Norwich University. And that was in November 17th, 1914. And you can see here on March 11th, 1950, William G. Wilson of East Dorset, former seminary student, had the misfortune of a slip on the ice recently in Norwich. He had fallen down and it became a little bit of a hypochondriac. So he actually had 2 and maybe you can say 3 starts at Norwich University before he actually was there for a significant period and then got activated for World War I. But I'm going down a rabbit hole and Kim is looking at me a little funny over the camera. So today, in 2005, when the Griffith Library opened, this is why it's called the Griffith Library, because we have all these volumes that were donated. And Ozzy created this as a quiet haven for people to come who wanted to learn more about alcoholism, spirituality, its effects on the family. So up till 2005, this was really probably one of the more comprehensive libraries. And there's also a number of grapevines down on the bottom. Dick B., who some of you might be familiar with, all his books are here. He provided a lot of the study materials are down below. The only thing is, since 2005 to today, a lot of this is now available online. So we don't get quite as many people coming over here to ask for access to the books, but the books are here. And probably the one book that I have opened up the case to look at is The Varieties of Spiritual Experience, which Bill read in Towns Hospital. It's not the original book, but it is a copy of the book. So we're going to go upstairs. So Bill and Dorothy kind of lived in what would have been called the attic. This area would have been the post office, because it would have been right off the street. And we're going to take the 11 steps. Yeah, 11 steps up to the second floor. And in this small little sitting area, there's a door right here, which would have gone into the storage area, which actually seems to be somewhat blocked off right now. I'm not going to force the issue. But it was in that room where the chest was that held the violin, his Uncle Clarence's violin, who I mentioned a couple weeks ago on the cemetery tour. And that's where Bill would have gone to find his Uncle Clarence's violin, and became a lifelong passion for Bill's. Over here we have a display case with copies of the 1941 Jack Alexander Saturday Evening Post, which kind of really put AA on the map, even though the book was published in '39. It wasn't until Jack Alexander did this kind of cover story on AA that suddenly the mailboxes overflowed. There's a number of books here that are signed by Bill. One of the great things about Bill was he generally always dated his books. It was easy to find out who he wrote them to, when he wrote them to, and where he was, because he would write either New York, a lot of times it was New York, a couple of, I've seen them with Vermont on there. So these were all to somebody who lives somewhat locally, except for Dr. Harry Tebow, who anybody who knows a little bit about AA history, Dr. Harry Tebow was a Grinch psychiatrist who helped get Marty Mann sober, one of the first women to have long-term sobriety in AA. Number of pictures, a lot of old second and third edition big books, and various, Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. So there's some neat stuff to look through if you come here. And a lot of old photos of the Wilson House, Bill throughout his life. Some of the East Dorset, some of the general street scenes in East Dorset. But what's fun is a lot of people come here, you will see down the hallway here was Bill's bedroom. And in Bill's bedroom, which was really cool, the family of Dr. Leonard Strong, Dorothy's, Bill's sister's Dorothy, her husband's family, they actually donated Bill's crib and his high chair. So you can actually come here. Please don't climb in it, but you can come here and see Bill's crib and high chair, which is on display. Everything else in here is somewhat period, but Bill had a obsession with shortwave radio, with Morse code. He had a lot of tinkerings with some chemicals, and then of course there's the famous story of the boomerang, in which he found the perfect piece of wood in his headboard and then threw it up and around the church steeple after his grandfather taunted him that he'd only heard that only an Australian could throw a boomerang. So we do have, it's not the boomerang, but there is a boomerang here. And it's a rather peaceful place. I know a lot of people come up here to do here fifth steps, and it's really just kind of a quiet spot to come and stay. And there's a picture of Bill in 1897 when he went down to Manchester to have himself photographed. And there's actually an original copy over at the Wilson House, which was a gift of one of the later postmasters. And of course, he was an avid fisherman. He went fishing in Mad Tom Brook, and would look up at Mount Eolus, and the beauty of the trees they're wonderful to look at, but when you really want to be able to look what's beyond them, it's impossible. So I would recommend everybody read page 100 of As Bill Sees It, and he talks about looking up at that vast and mysterious mountain. So if you have a copy of As Bill Sees It, check out page 100. And on that note, enjoy the rest of the Big Book Study, and thanks for being with us. Good?